Well, hello there. I want to take a little time out to kind of go over and give some nuggets from my own personal experience from your study book on dating. One of the things that I want to bring out in chapter 1, we did have we talked about the first three different principles of dating, but I wanted to try to go into this fourth one, which I think is very important for you all to kind of listen to what I am saying, because I wanted to make sure you get it down in your spirit about the choices on page 14. It says there are only two choices. Either you will follow God's standards by deliberate choice, or you will follow the world's standards by default. On chapter 15, I'm going to be talking about right now the point that you are ready to date when you don't need to. Okay, very important to remember. You're ready to date when you don't need to. I'm on page 15, and it says here on the fourth dating principle, it says, which arises from the other three and is important, most important of all, is simply this: you are ready to date when you don't need to. This was very important to me, and over my lifetime, being one who's been in different dating relationships, I found it very necessary for us to understand, as I get further on into my discussion about how to learn how to be alone. But it's God's desire that no man be alone. But you got to first learn about who you are. It talks about here in this text, it says, if you feel that you need a date in order to be complete or fulfilled personally, you are not ready for dating, which is very, very true. Many people have so much low self-esteem that they don't see anything worth for themselves to have a mate, or they have so much negativity about themselves, whether it's the weight or the hair or the intellect, if they don't understand stuff and not as smart or what have you. But it goes on to say need involves demand and implies that there is something lacking in life. Okay. So when you feel that you need to do this, that means you need something to make you feel complete. And our theme of our group training for this particular certification, it's Colossians 2 and 10, that says that I am complete in Him, which is the head of all principalities and powers. And so it also says here that the opposite of need is choice, which allows for a decision. See, most of the time when we have a legitimate need to get into making a choice, this means that we have made a decision that we're going to do something because we don't just want to do it because it's something to do. It's because something that we need. Most of the time we have a need. But the point I'm trying to get at is we got to look at what am I in need of? It says once all our needs have been met, we are then free to choose based on our personal preference or desire. And many times, when we feel like our needs are met, most of them may be met in the natural, whether it's material things or whether it's something that you wanted to do for yourself, but it's still this missing point as far as a relationship goes. This is what you got to understand, that you will be ready to date when you know it's not a need in your life. And this is the hardest part for us to realize. It says here that consciously or subconsciously, the quest to fulfill our perceived needs drives our lives and influences all our decisions. This is just as true with relationships as with anything else. As long as you perceive lack of incompleteness within yourself, every time you look up your relationships, you find yourself when you enter into them, that means this is the way it's going to be. That means to one degree or another, an effort to supply that lack or bring a sense of completeness, you're going to be striving to do that. And you may be getting with somebody you already know is not compatible, or someone that God has not chosen. So if you feel deficient, you will build your entire relationship on that deficiency. Why? Because you will be looking to the other person to supply what you do not have. And so most of the time, when you get in with people, whether it's just friends, it don't have to be a sexual or intimate type of relationship, whatever that reason that you have chosen, to get with the individual, it's because you may be lacking something that you want them to fulfill or make you feel better about. It is a matter of your ability to be happy and content whether you are with someone else or not. So when you regard dating as a matter of choice rather than a necessity, then you are ready. So that's what I want to share on that part. As we flip over here to page 17, at the bottom it said before Eve came along, Adam was alone, but he was not lonely. Many people who are in relationships are feeling so lonely because they feel that there's no need to do anything because they feel like everything seems so alone and so empty. I want you to go back and read carefully Genesis chapter 2, verses 7 through 9. And then right here, where it's showing here in your book on page 17, all the scriptures, uh, uh, 7 through 9, and then 15, and then 18 through 22. You read those, but it was talking about before Eve came along, Adam was alone, but he was not lonely. Okay, why? Because loneliness is a spiritual disease. It says that Adam was alone because he was the only one of his kind, but he was completely fulfilled as a person. That's important. You need to underline that. Are you, and ask yourself, am I completely fulfilled within myself as a person? That's the reason why it's so hard to be alone, because sometimes we look at, like I said earlier, we look at ourselves, our weight, things that we feel like is empty because there's nothing going on or nothing that we feel good about. Some things you got to find some type of joy, uh some type of activity, or some type of something that you like to do that that you enjoy doing. It could be coloring, it could be anything, a painting, it could be making clothes or t-shirts, whatever God has given you a creativity to do. You can't just look for everybody else to give you some joy or some fun to do. This is not going to make you complete. It's only going to give you a temporary opportunity to be with someone so you don't feel this emptiness that you're trying to be fulfilled by somebody else that only God can do. So it went on to say here on bottom of page 17, Adam was so fulfilled within himself and so busy tending the garden and naming and caring for the birds and animals that he never felt the need or desire for a companion. This is called singleness, or being single. Very important. You're by yourself. It's nobody with the grace of God that I find myself alone so much that I've gotten adapted to it. I was one who wouldn't just introvert the way I am now. Introvert means that you like to pretty much be alone and you're a loner. But extrovert means that you like to go out and do extracurricular activities and do those with other people. But introverts means that you stay inside or you stay pretty much by yourself. And so that means I have a fulfillment in knowing that I've made a decision that Jesus is the Lord of my life. And I'm not looking for anybody to fulfill that. It's nobody can do that but God. And trust me, this was one who liked to party and everything else, but I had to soon learn when I said I was giving my whole life to the Lord that I had to take the time to spend to know who I was and what God was expecting out of me as a single preacher woman. Okay. So it goes on to say that he was so preoccupied with doing what God had told him to do that he sensed no need for a mate. Okay. Apparently, the thought never entered his head. Providing a mate for Adam was God's idea, which means that it was not his idea, it was God's idea. And so Adam was completely self fulfilled. He was ready for a mate when he did not need one. Many of us, like I said, need it for whatever reason. So I'm going to get off here and I'm going to start in just a few minutes to talk about learning how to be alone. Very, very important. I'm recapping all of this because this is some things that you all are going to have to do on your drama and things like that. But I want you all to first prepare to really, really get these different characteristics down in your spirit. It talked about one, two, I think it's got two or three different or four different characteristics that you need to learn and understand about how to be alone. And this is so important now because as you begin to go forward in this training, you're going to have to learn how to be alone and how to even do some things that you have never ever did as far as trying to build your wisdom and understanding about this particular training, and so that you won't, how they say, it's better to make sure that you don't make yourself ashamed. And so that means much has been given to you, much is going to be required. So you're not going to be able to just halfway do things. You want to do it that's going to be pleasing unto God. So then God can show you your mate because you all will be equal in what you see and what you hear. God bless you. I'll be going on to still in chapter 1 to be talking about the next portion of this chapter, and that is learn how to be alone.